Well, now, there are less than 2 weeks to go until the deadline for EU nationals living in the UK to apply for settled or pre-settled status. There are concerns amongst activists, and not everyone knows that they need to apply. Well, let's talk to the solicitor, Hannah Smith. Good to see you this morning. I mean, where are we in terms of people who have not yet applied who need to do so?
So based on what the AIRE Centre is seeing and based on what we can see across the advice sector, there are still hundreds, if not thousands, of vulnerable individuals who are left to apply to the scheme. So the amount of requests that we receive has more than doubled in the past few months. And the kind of individuals that we're seeing, it's not just people who haven't bothered to apply to the scheme, it's incredibly vulnerable individuals who may not have been aware of the scheme, who may not have been aware of the need to apply to the scheme, you know. So the kind of cases that we're seeing on a daily basis is people without mental capacity to apply to the scheme, people who might be living in controlling or abusive relationships where their partners prevented them from applying, people who have serious and debilitating medical conditions. So, you know, we've had referrals from doctors about patients who are in a coma at the moment who need to apply and who have not yet been able to. So it's an incredibly concerning situation, and obviously all these difficulties in applying and in accessing legal support to apply have been made more difficult by the coronavirus pandemic, which has obviously dominated the majority of the time that the scheme has been open.
But when you, I mean, the types of vulnerable people you're talking about, they're obviously very serious situations. Presumably there's got to be some sort of discompensation for them, some sort of leeway for them if they're in those sort of scenarios.
Yeah, so the Home Office fairly recently introduced guidance on who would be permitted to apply to the scheme late, and it is fairly broad guidance, and in that guidance it says if you're encountered by immigration enforcement from the 1st of July onwards and you haven't yet applied, that you will be permitted to apply and you won't be removed from the UK. However, this protection from removal is not enough to protect a person from the whole other raft of hostile environment policies which a person might be subject to from 1st of July onwards. And that includes losing the right to work, the right to rent, the right to have a bank account in the UK, the right to claim social welfare assistance. So there's a whole other series of things that might happen to a person come 1st of July if they haven't submitted an application by 30th of June onwards. And the Home Office has recently, I think it was just yesterday afternoon, announced that if a person is already working in the UK or if they're already renting in the UK, that right shouldn't stop from the 1st of July onwards. So a landlord shouldn't suddenly say you're no longer permitted to live here. But that doesn't, again, cover everyone that we deal with. You know, there's people who have not yet started work in the UK, who have not yet claimed benefits in the UK, who from 1st of July onwards wouldn't be able to apply for a job for the first time if they simply don't submit an application by the 30th of June.
There may well be people watching, though, who would say, well, I mean, admittedly, concerns, and you are concerned for that small number, but they would say, from what you said and the leeways which the government has announced, that, you know, pretty much everyone is covered. You know, there is, for most people, there isn't going to be this absolute deadline.
So for many people, there will be this absolute cliff edge in terms of their right to access social welfare assistance, their right to work. And it's not just people in the incredibly vulnerable situation that I described at the start. There are people who've lived in the UK for 10, 20 years, who were previously granted permanent residence in the UK, so told at the time that they were permitted to stay here indefinitely, who still don't know that they should and are obliged to apply. And what we're seeing across the sector from key decision makers in the local authorities, from the DWP, Home Office, employers, is widespread confusion about who actually does have a right to be in the UK, who has a right to work in the UK. So even if the Home Office is continuously introducing new changes and new slight exceptions to the rule that everyone will be in the UK unlawfully from 1st of July if they haven't yet applied, people don't understand the impact of this ever-changing guidance. And we're already seeing requests from people who've been told by their employers that they must have settled status to continue working. We're seeing people who've been refused homelessness assistance told that their assistance will be discontinued, even though they are eligible. And so whilst there might be some provisions and some exceptions, what is evidently clear is that no one really understands exactly what the position is, because it's ever changing and it's a completely new situation. And as you know, we're receiving a few hundreds of requests for advice at the moment, but for every person who requests advice, I'm sure that there are hundreds, if not thousands, in a similar situation who haven't been able to access the support that they need, that haven't been reached. And the pandemic certainly made that harder, and so has the digital nature of the scheme, whereby, you know, it's the proof of status is only accessible online. So for anyone without a smartphone or access to the internet, it becomes incredibly difficult to prove that you do have a right to reside in the UK.
Hannah Smith, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.